things great guest. We're back to having guests, which is great. You don't just get to hear me talk. So tonight we're going to be talking about business empathy in cyber crisis, which I think is something that we all need to understand and prepare for as these cyber crimes and cyber breaches and all of these things are happening more and more often and are affecting smaller and smaller businesses just because the bad people have gotten the ability to operate at scale now. So it makes it worthwhile for them to do. All right, as usual, I'm going to go through and I've got to make sure that everything is working. So let me just double check and get everything going here. Just need to make sure that all the comments are working. So if you are here and you're watching, please go ahead and comment so that I know that you're here. And I know that that side of the comments is working. All right, so there's YouTube. And LinkedIn. Helps if I can type. There we go. And let me just, the problem with Facebook is I have to open it up wide enough so that everything fits on the screen so that I can actually find things. But let me know what you guys are doing this week in the comments while I still am getting this all set up. Oh, there we go. Okay. So now we've got Facebook. Got to mute myself though. There we go. All right, there we go. Now, one last thing, I got to put a comment in on the Facebook stream. And hopefully Facebook will forgive me for not capitalizing the F in Facebook. All right, I know the comments are working, so if you're here and not commenting, I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, a couple of things before we get started tonight. Don't forget, we have merch now. We have merch. So if you want to support what we do here at All Things MSP, just go to atmsp.link/threadless. We're doing it through the Threadless store. We may spin up an Amazon store as well, just because I kind of know from personal preference that I like to buy things through Amazon. And if that makes it easier, then I'll try and do it for you guys. But that is a way to not only provide your support monetarily, but also to, support the channel out there. Show your support, I guess, is the best way to put that. And then, of course, if you are a vendor and you would like to engage more with the All Things MSP audience, we have several ways to do that. From free vendor partner status, because I reject the pay-to-play model, okay? And so there is a free vendor partner status. You do get some engagement and some things like that. So please reach out to me. There are paid engagements as well. That just gives you more exposure to the group, more content creation with me and with Justin, and lots of advantages that come along with financially supporting All Things MSP. Other than that, things have been pretty normal this week. Not a lot to talk about, but obviously some great conversations in the group. A lot of conversations going on around events, and we're going to be spinning up a live stream probably late November, maybe even early December, about the future of events in this channel. And I've got MSPs as well as vendors coming on to discuss the future of events in the channel. All right, timer's counted down, so let's do this thing. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another All Things MSP Live. Thank you for joining us tonight. And if you are here in the audience, please go ahead and let us know in the comments. Hopefully, we'll get some more of the regular crew in here tonight so that, I'm not just talking to my guest. Speaking of my guest tonight, we're going to be talking about business empathy in cyber crisis. Now, when she proposed this title, I was like, this is something that people aren't really talking about. We talk about the mental health aspect of things, and this kind of touches on that. But the mental health usually goes into more around what we can do for ourselves, maybe what we can do for our employees, but it doesn't so much go to the topic of how should we treat our business partners, our clients and customers when we are in the midst of one of these cyber crises. So my guest tonight is Barb Paluszkiewicz. She's the visionary CEO of CDN Technologies. She's championed the cause for top tier IT services for quite a while. We were having this discussion kind of in the green room before the show about she and I both have kind of seen this industry transform from computers being a nice to have in the business to computers being just a required aspect and vital to the day-to-day, even hour-to-hour workflow of a business. Now, CDN Technologies was the first and only CompTIA Security Trustmark Plus accredited service provider in Canada, and it just underlines the emphasis that she puts and her business puts on cybersecurity services, IT support, and what her vision is of being able to do those things. So, she operates all across Southern Ontario for small and medium enterprises. Now, her first book, which I actually have here, okay, is IT Scams: How to Avoid Being Ripped Off by Your Computer Guy in IT Services. Definitely, recommend you pick up this book. It was a good read and offers you a really good look into some of the challenges that businesses face in the tech industry. She's done a ton of speaking engagements. She has her own podcast called No Tech Talk. And then she's also spoken at places like Carnegie Hall. She's been on various TV shows, all the big networks like ABC, NBC, CBS, Rogers, Fox. And if you're not familiar with Rogers, that's a Canadian thing. If you've spent time in Canada like I have, you get used to it. But, so that's a Canadian thing. And, she really delves into the topics of the importance of cybersecurity and why it's important to have those cybersecurity features in place to make their IT systems more robust. There's just lots of things that she's done in this community. We've both served on the CompTIA Executive Council for the North American community and continue to do so. And so she's really been, in my opinion, a champion for the cause in not just the MSP world, but the cybersecurity world as it relates, especially to small business. So that was a lot of introduction, but she's worth it. She deserved it. Barb.
Thank you, Eric. That was awesome.
I try. So how are you
Great.
tonight?
I'm great. You know what? It's getting cold here in Canada. I know you were recently at CanITCon, so you saw the weather there. I went to Alaska, so it was probably a little bit colder, but I think that I brought the cold from Alaska down here because it's getting cold. It's that time of year. It's fall time. How are
Yeah,
you
in
doing?
Alaska, my in-laws actually drive to Alaska every year. They have an RV and they go up, they spend the entire summer and then come back. So they were on their way back as you were headed up there. Um, but beautiful country. I have not been yet, but for months every summer, I get all of these beautiful pictures from my mother-in-law about, of all over in Alaska.
It's exactly like what the pictures look like. I've never taken so many beautiful scenic photos that look exactly like a postcard in my entire life. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I can imagine it's just a great place to spend time, rest, relax, all those things. Now, I have to say, I really appreciate that you came on tonight fully branded in all things MSP colors. Like, uh, thank you so much for that.
Oh, you know what? We at CDN Technologies, we aim to please. Oh,
So tonight you wanted to talk about, and I really loved this topic as I said in the introduction, about business empathy in cyber crisis. And so, in order to kind of level set what we're talking about tonight, how would you define business empathy?
well, I think that when it comes to empathy in general, people sometimes think that means that you're a gullible person or sensitive. But when it comes to the business world, and especially in IT, it's about respecting and understanding the situation of the other person, respecting and understanding the situation that the other person is in at the moment, and integrating feelings when you're interacting with them in your discovery calls, in your business processes, in your all of your decisions and your interactions. Um, you mentioned in the intro how we've been in this space for a while, and we have been like, we brought people from uh, fax machines and snail mails to computers. So in the olden days, you can say that business empathy was like good customer service or building rapport. And I find that those skills, they really make a big difference now when it comes to people that are dealing with IT issues and are in crisis, because from an IT perspective, if you downplay something and if you don't respect what it is that they're going through, it can quickly escalate in a negative direction. And that's when things get a little bit crazier for
Yeah,
everyone
and
involved.
uh, for me, I mentioned we've both kind of been in this since computers were a nice to have, right? And technology was kind of a nice to have in business. And the stresses were not then what they are now. And because there's so much, even leaving the cyber piece out of it, right? They are so much a integral part that just being down, being without the technology for a brief period of time can be very stressful on a business owner.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because in our space, in the managed service provider, we act as outsourced IT departments for like small, medium sized businesses. I know that for everyone who's listening as an MSP, you know what an MSP is, but it's a new term for people. And imagine the frustration from a person that's not technical. Imagine their frustration when they're having software issues, hardware issues, internet issues. As IT professionals, these are all trivial issues. As an MSP, this is a trivial issue. We have the tools, we have the knowledge to see this person, to guide them through this difficult situation. But that difficult situation could also be the reason why someone went postal that day. Like it was the straw that broke the camel's back. So you need to understand and acknowledge why people are frustrated with their IT and frustrated with their tech. And know that there's always going to be a greater story behind their frustrations. Like, there's going to be stress, there's going to be pressure, and you have to ensure that you're able to take them from that negative state of mind to a positive state of mind. You want to be able to turn that frown upside down. Is that a good way of phrasing it? Is that what MSPs do with respect to IT? Like turn that frown upside down? Are we frozen? I think we might
Helps
be
if I
frozen.
take myself off mute because I,
Oh,
was coughing, right?
all
Anyway,
right.
that's because, hey, we do these live and they're fun and we laugh at ourselves and it's great. Um, what I was saying while I was on mute was that because this is integral to the business, workflow now, it is something that is part of their everyday. And so we do have the opportunities to turn that frown upside down because we not only have an opportunity to just fix a problem, right? We have the opportunity to delight in finding new solutions to problems that they didn't even know technology could solve. And that's part of business empathy as well, because empathy is not just being empathetic when they're having a stressful situation. I think you pointed this out in the beginning. It's more about the entire experience that they have with you as a company. Now, the one thing I want to say, and I'm not throwing shade on anybody because I'm describing me, okay? A lot of us got into this as technical guys, as engineering folks who are primarily introverted, right? This persona right here, I'm introverted. Just because I do a live stream and a podcast does not mean I'm extroverted. And so I don't default to necessarily being empathetic. It's something that I had to learn along the way. Now, you, who I perceive to be a relatively extroverted person, I imagine that empathy comes a little bit more naturally.
Um, yes, I'm female. Women are known to be more empathetic. And when I go to an IT conference and I go places to work, to learn, there's not too many women that are there. So essentially, when you need to talk to someone and need to ask questions, you kind of have to be proactive about it because the men, they're not going to talk to you. they're and it whether they're introverted or scared of talking to women, but they live in a different life. You know what? They live in the cyber world. They're behind a keyboard. Everything is used to texting. I am a mother. I am a spouse. Like, you know what? Talking is a great form of communication these days, and knowing how to do it without irritating others, without agitating them, without adding to their fear and their confusion or their anger because their IT is down, is a great skill to have because it allows them to open up so that you can listen, so that you can figure out how long it's going to take to help them, what it is that is needed. Is it a small problem? Is it a big problem? Because as an MSP, that's what we do. You know, we help people who face IT issues. Those IT issues, when the first time they call, they're accompanied by fear, confusion, anger. Like, you know what, they're wondering how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost. Like, you know, when can this be done by? They want all those questions answered when they seek someone out who delivers professional services. Like, you know, no different than, like, you know, the plumber or the mechanic or the electrician. So on my end, when we receive those calls where people are confused and scared, you need to be able to uh, speak with them and demonstrate empathy to guide them through their emotions so that they can make a good decision and move forward in a positive direction. because their feelings will guide them to saying yes and no and moving forward. Is all that making sense?
Yeah, and actually, it's a really good segue into my next question, which was because I think you probably the most important thing you just mentioned, which was listening, is my question though was how do you show empathy? What is the process for being more empathetic? And I mean, you perfectly said the first part, I think, which is listening.
All right. So here's the skinny, and that is you have two ears and one mouth. So you have to listen twice as much as you talk. And then the second part is I brought up actually an SOP that I have for my techs. And it's 5 things that you can do to be more empathetic. Because just like you said, Eric, at the beginning, you're a tech guy. You're really, really good at tech. Talking to people is a different world, especially when you're young and you're just starting out. So I have a list, 5 things that you can do to be more empathetic. The first one is listen. When you're listening, never jump to conclusions. Let the people vent, take notes, and you also have to adapt to their personality style. If they're a slow talker, be a slow talker. If they're like short and to the point, be short and to the point. Like never be dismissive or negative when you speak to them. Like never. Just listen.
Right.
The second thing is ask clarifying questions, because when you ask clarifying questions, it will present any unique situations that the person may be having that is identifies with whatever issues that they're having. It gets them to talk more.
Yeah.
It also lets them vent a little bit more to get everything out. So number 3 is listen a little bit more. Always let them finish their thoughts. Once you've listened, you've asked your questions and you've listened some more, then ask permission if they're ready to talk, to move forward. Ask if they're open to hear some options, to go through some solutions. That's number 4. Ask permission to move forward. And number 5 is when you're presenting a solution, after you've had agreement, to present it in steps. Because sometimes it's not a clickety-click Barbara trick to solve the problem. You need to do A before you do B, before you do C, to make sure that D, E, and F fall into play. So that's my 5 things to do for techs to be a little bit more empathetic. We incorporate that at CDN Technologies. It's one of our SOPs, and it works.
Yeah, there's
it works.
2 important things there. Number 1, oh, I'm getting a little bit of feedback.
It's all good feedback, right?
Not that kind of feedback. Anyway, so there are 2 things I want to pull out of that. Number 1, you have an SOP. That's an important part of making sure that this is a process, right? And the SOP helps especially a smaller business owner, right? Who's trying to scale the business. The personality that you have, that you built the business on, if you want the business to continue to have a very similar personality, that's one of the things that those SOPs do for you. And an SOP like this does specifically that. It allows you to push your personality the way you started the business onto your employees, so that type of customer experience, that type of customer service is continued as you're growing it. Now, the other thing that I thought was interesting was you mentioned clarifying questions. And clarifying questions also, in my experience, have the effect of allowing you to kind of parrot back by asking questions what they just told you, helping them to hear that you listened and you understood enough of what they were saying to ask intelligent questions about it. So I think that's a great SOP, and I think I'm going to go back. I'm going to write them down, and I'm going to make a post in the Facebook group. Uh,
I can also give you a bit of a cheat for the SOP. When you have there's a whole bunch of stuff on my desk. When you have your binder of SOPs, when you open it up, and it's divided into sections, on the right hand side is the technical SOP. And then when you flip the page, it's the reminder. Hey, listen, look, ask clarifying questions. So it's always there, because when you're solving a technical problem, it feels, the team loves it. But you know what? We're very collaborative here. You might only have one person implementing the solution or executing the solution, but there's a whole team and a whole thought process
yeah.
that goes behind that, so that it goes off smoothly. So what happens is it's always on the other side, so that you are reminded how to interact with another person. The other thing that we do is in our offices is we put pictures of people doing all kinds of things around the office to remind people that work here that on the other side of your screen, through the internet to the other world, on the other side of that screen is another person. And that's whom we're helping. We're helping another person. We're guiding them through the process, and we need them to work with us. We need those good vibes. We need to make sure that everybody's moving forward in a positive direction, and we're constantly problem solving. So we're constantly going from the negative to the positive. And it's just a reminder, we're working with people have emotions. It's how people make decisions, and it's there because we forget.
Yeah.
We're all human. No one wants to go postal, but sometimes we have our tough days.
I think we all have our tough days, right? And when we run into a technical problem, especially as an end user, if we run into a technical problem and we don't have the expertise to solve it, we even get more frustrated. Degley actually commented, another way we have used empathy is to let them know that they are experts on what they do and we're experts on what we do. And, we'd most likely be in their same situation if we ran up a problem that they solve that we don't know anything about. So, lots of good things that empathy can do for your business. Now, what we haven't really talked about yet is the increased stress, the increased empathy required for, let's just call it a cyber event, where now we're talking about an extinction level event for a client. And the stress is on the business owner, the stress is on their employees, the stress is on the MSP owner, and the stress is on their employees. So what are your thoughts on kind of those different realms?
The human cost of technical failure. Oh, it's a tough one, because essentially people, when they don't invest in their IT, when they don't invest in the safety or security of their IT or business operations, they are taking a gamble. And they take that gamble to save money. They don't have the money, in any quarter but this quarter. And the sad part about it is, when they're hit with a ransom attack, all that money that they saved, they're never going to be able to spend it, because the majority of the time when it's gone, it's gone. So it kind of diffuses the purpose. You put this money aside for a rainy day, and something else happens and wipes it out. So how do you deal with the emotional aspect of that? It's a tough one. You have to listen. When I don't know if you've ever had to deal with it. I've had to, when customers have lost what they thought was $2 million and then ends up being $4 million. They were doing the security awareness training videos. They knew that they should call to make sure that the update to the wire transfer information was legit, but they're wearing so many hats. They're just like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. It was the end of the day thing. Next thing you know it, they forgot it. For 3 months, they were paying the wrong person. So it meant that they were out $2 million because when their supplier called, they're just like, hey, you know what, like we're not going to be sending you these goods because we haven't paid. And the customer says, I did pay you. Here are the receipts, so on and so forth. So what happens? Sure enough, the police get involved. CDN Technologies gets a call and says that the police are here. We're under a little cybercrime thing. And I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out because I'm just like, I have no idea what to walk into. You always remember your first one. So this was my first one as well. So I go in there and the situation, all I did was listen. You know what? The situation presented itself. There's tears. There's swearing. There's things going flying across the room. And I just took guidance from the police officers. They were just like listening and listening and listening. And then they had to, all they did was listen because there was nothing that the police were going to do. I'll make a report and that's it. What happened is then they had to pay the supplier that they owed money to $2 million because they were in contractual agreements to make sure that the products that they were buying was put on the shelves. So now, top level, we're looking at $4 million. Then the fight came as to why did this happen? Luckily for us, it didn't happen. The network wasn't breached. Security awareness training, the owner admitted to it. They admitted to it that they did it and they should have called and they didn't. But they didn't think it was going to happen. No one ever thinks it's going to happen to them. So how do you deal with that as a situation when you're an MSP and it's a client that's doing all the right things? It's a tough one. All you can do is listen and be there for them and help them and guide them through the appropriate measures on how to deal with insurance. Hopefully they have it. But, here in Canada, if it happens within your organization by you, insurance doesn't pay out. So all you can do is listen and provide guidance and then essentially work with them to help them move forward in a positive direction to make sure that the damage isn't as bad. You just have to listen and then you have to guide. It's a tough one. Yeah. It's a tough one. Asking clarifying questions, that just agitates they're already escalated. So you really have to be careful and you can't downplay the situation. You can't go, I told you so, or anything like that. We're like, whew, I'm glad. You can't do things like that. It's not very nice. You just kind of have to, if anyone listening has children, it's kind of you have to, it's like that. You have to listen, you have to wipe the tears, you have to guide them, and then you just, make sure it doesn't happen again and work with them on that. Because, we've been to the conferences and ransomware, it's getting bigger. The problem isn't getting smaller. There's more money being transferred out of North America. The problem is, I forget what the big, huge number is, but all that means is that people in North America, they're saving, and they're losing, and they're saving a lot and they're losing a lot. And it's quite sad. I just watched The Equalizer with Denzel Washington and Dakota Fanning. And one of the things that led Denzel Washington into the situation that he was in was to help someone recover their life savings, which was $360,000 that happened because of a cyber incident. So giving the money back. Not all of us is going to have Denzel Washington beating people up as the equalizer and justifying everything in our lives. So it is a problem that's happening. It's not going away. It's getting bigger. And unfortunately, when it happens, the process is the same. Like, listen, ask questions so that you can guide them and move forward. Ask permission if you can present solutions and options. And that will minimize the stress and it'll minimize the conflict. And you move forward. The sun will come up tomorrow, type of
Yeah.
thing.
By the way, I just had the mental image. The movie series, the Taken series with Liam Neeson, right?
Yes.
So I just imagined you doing one of your cybersecurity promo videos and telling, a cyber criminal that you have a certain set of skills.
It's funny because as I was getting ready for work today and getting dressed, I thought, oh, do I need to is the vest at the office? Or is it in the trunk of my car? Because I was just speaking. I was just like, should I wear that? And I was just like, and then I completely forgot. But every time that I speak, I do wear that
Yeah.
cybersecurity
Yeah.
vest. Thank you for the line to add to my presentation.
So the other part of this is obviously the MSP side of it, right? And my first ransomware event, I want to say it was either late 2012, early 2013. It was a print shop. I was actually speaking at an Autotask live show. This was back when I was still an MSP and I was speaking for vendors at some of these shows. I was speaking at an Autotask live show and I actually had to come home early because they had been ransomed. And I remember how stressful that was on me because I took it all like I just owned that whole situation, right? I internalized it and not a good thing for me to do. And it ultimately resolved itself basically because of some good luck and me being able to find some shadow copies of some backups and restore just enough to get them back up and running. But it was probably 3 of the most stressful days of my life. So, what are your recommendations for the MSP, both from an owner side as well as a technician or employee side? How do you show empathy to yourself and your employees?
To myself, ask myself a lot of questions, listen. I actually have a coach, and my coach guides me and keeps me on track. It's a business development coach, and I've had this coach in my life for, oh my goodness, maybe about 18 years now.
Wow.
We actually knew each other in my previous life when I worked at a private vocational school. He was a sales trainer, and I was in sales. I was young. I was getting great results, and it was because I was empathetic. To be perfectly honest, I was just listening because as people were spewing all this technical jargon at me, I was just nodding my head, and I knew I didn't know. I knew to be polite. I knew to be kind. I knew to be to listen and to be professional in my mannerisms, and that's what enabled me to be successful. And it just so happened that when both of our companies got bought by American institutions at different times, we went in separate directions, but then he was speaking at a conference and I was there, and I was just like, do you remember me? He's like, I know exactly who you are, because we were at competitive institutions. So you kind of always know who your competitors
Right,
are,
right.
where the deal is going. It's like, I know exactly who you are. And I had just started CDN Technologies, and I was at this conference, this networking event, and I was just like, um, I could really use a coach and some development because uh, I don't know what these people are talking about sometimes. I can help our customers, but I need to work with a technical team and guide them. And I need to show them how much better their life could be once they listen and just take a step back, ask a few questions, listen some more, ask if you can present a solution. Once you get the permission to move forward, like, then let them know what you're doing along the way. So I completely forgot what the question was I was supposed to answer, Eric.
No, I mean you were covering it. You were talking about what you do as an MSP business owner to help with, providing yourself with empathy. And I think I think properly, and this kind of goes along with what we've talked about already, is the person who needs the empathy has to have somebody to unload their problems onto, unload, what's bothering them onto. So you having that coach would be similar to somebody else maybe having a therapist or a business coach or somebody similar that you can communicate. You can let those things go verbally by sharing them with another person and just letting that other person listen.
Having a coach to MSPs, and I know that there's peer groups and everyone out there, and there's peer groups in our space, and there's lots of Facebook groups and everything. But having a coach that has business acumen and is good at coaching is amazing.
Yeah.
Every professional has a coach. Olympic athletes have 2, 3 coaches. Like, there are times when I'm implementing things where, I bring on another coach because I need another perspective, but I've always had, like, my one coach with me the entire time to help me deal with all of the other things. Because uh, when you're interacting with people, you're interacting with emotions all the time. And when you are keeping everything moving forward in a positive direction, it gets taxing. We referenced mental health earlier, but you have to learn how to establish boundaries professionally. You have to learn how to keep moving forward in a positive direction. If I was like a complete non-for-profit, I could give everything away. But the truth of the matter is even if I give everything away, people aren't going to take it because they're just like, yeah. I know a guy, I got this, I got that. But then when it comes to giving stuff away, our industry, how it has evolved, all the professionals in our space, they all come with tools. There's no MacGyvering anymore to get things to work. Everyone has tools, and you have to have a coach to help you with boundaries, and you have to have a coach that will help you help others so that you can keep them moving forward in a positive direction, to keep them safe, to keep their business safe, to keep their financial futures safe. Phew.
Yeah. So a lot to unpack there, right? And now, so the last group that we really haven't talked about then is, as an MSP owner, what do you do for your employees to show empathy?
How I show empathy to my employees? Well, we're at an interesting time now because there are so many different types of employees.
Right.
We have young people, we have retired people that are on the verge of retire. We have, like, veterans coming back. There's the whole different nationalities and cultures that all come into play. Uh, I just listen to everything. Like, hey, what's up? How's it going? I like, and just let them talk, ask questions, let them just let everyone talk and work it out. And we have a very collaborative environment here. So everyone's always talking about something. So essentially what we do here at CDN Technologies to showcase empathy and what works is we talk a lot. We ask questions. Then sometimes we'll ask more questions. And then if it approaches the, I don't know, a gray area, you have enough common sense to ask permission to ask questions or to hit on anything that's taboo. And people are very open and they're happy to talk. And I find that by encouraging people to talk, by encouraging people to listen, it minimizes stress and it minimizes conflicts. So that's kind of how we do it here. It's not rocket science. We just talk a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think, a lot of what we've come down to tonight is listening and communicating. And I think that is important because empathy is about relationship, right? And you can't have a relationship unless you're communicating. And communicating, like we've said a lot tonight, is a two-way street. And so it's the listening as well as the sharing piece. And I think that's really what it comes down to when we're talking about empathy. Now, you mentioned something earlier, and I think this is a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. So maybe, sometime later, December, January, whenever you feel like doing this again, we can do empathy and the power that it has on sales. Because you mentioned that earlier when you were talking about your coach, and I'm like, yes, it has a lot to do with it.
It does, and as I was coming to how do I explain to people to be empathetic when they're engaging with people that are having IT problems, and essentially it's in a nutshell, it's good customer service. It's being polite, it's being well mannered, it's about listening. You have two ears and one mouth, so you should listen more than you talk. And that works in sales. I know I'm chatty when I'm not.
You chatty never. But this also ties in, by the way, with all of the customer experience stuff that I typically talk about, right? Because empathy has to be a part of your game plan when you're talking about trying to improve your customer experience across that customer experience journey. So Barb, thank you very much for coming on and talking about this tonight. I think it's a really important topic, and it really touches on a whole bunch of pieces of what we do as people in this MSP industry. And it just has so much to do with what we deal with every single day. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Oh, thank you for having me, Eric. It's quite an honor to be here, to be recognized by my peers. And that was a great introduction. I think I'm going to steal that and just play that the next time I have to talk to anyone.
I don't know. I think I may have rambled through a couple pieces of it. So if you want it professionally recorded, let me know, and I'll put it on the teleprompter and do it really well.
Sold.
All right. Well, I'm going to put you in the green room for just a second while I go ahead and kind of wrap us up for the evening.
All right. Peace and love, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight. If you have any questions about this topic, please go ahead, put them in the comments to this live stream, ask a question in the Facebook group. Oh, an announcement. We hit 5,000 members in the All Things MSP Facebook group this past week. It actually happened on last week's live stream. During the live stream, we actually got the 5,000th All Things MSP member. So that was really great. And I really appreciate everything that you guys do to make this community come alive and make it what it is. Okay. I'm getting flustered here because I'm so grateful for what this community has done and has allowed me to do. Now, if you want to support this community, sorry, shameless plug. Don't forget we have merch. It's atmsp.link/threadless. And, if you're a vendor, let me know. Let me know if there's something that we can do content wise. I just want to do more for this community. That's why we're looking for support. That's why we're looking for sponsorships. So thanks again for everybody participating, engaging in the community. We just want to make it better and give you more of the content that this channel has been producing up till now. All right. So the other thing is, as always, don't forget to go visit Uncle Marv's IT Business Podcast. That starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. So just about 13 minutes from now. Always great topics on that show, and really look forward to seeing Marv. Unfortunately, I've got something tonight, so I won't be able to be on, although I might sneak on my phone if they let me. Anyway, thanks again. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you for the membership in the group, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great evening.